So as we know, Dave Gettleman had a press conference on Tuesday morning. I watched it twice now. I watched it live. I went back and watched it once the Giants posted it on YouTube. And, John Mara had a press conference Monday as well. I don't know if it was a press conference, but basically talked to the media. And there were some interesting quotes from him as well. I wasn't sold that he's going to be buying Gettleman's side for like the next few years, no matter what. I feel like Gettleman's short. His leash is somewhat short at this point. I don't feel like Mara's too, happy with what he's seen here the last 2 years, but decided to give Gettleman one more chance. Of course, we know Pat Shurmur is gone, and Dave Gettleman on Tuesday morning had a press conference. So I'm going to go over some of the things he said that I thought were interesting, some things that I questioned and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I will play his clip first and then have my reaction to it after. So I hope you guys enjoy this video.
We're in the process of, we've hired 4 computer folks, software, and we are completely redoing our back end of our college and pro scouting systems.
So this one came up a few times during his conference, and I'm going to point out all of them. I think there's like 3 clips of him talking about the analytics. And we know that when he was hired, Dave Gettleman, he wasn't a believer in the analytics. There were some reporters asking questions about the positional value, about taking a running back number 2 overall. And Gettleman basically just mocked it and said, like, oh, that's just a guy who got on his computer and started doing this and making fun of the whole thing. And he was a guy who really didn't get behind analytics or believe in them, but now for some reason decides to change his mind, which is good. I'm happy that the guy's growing and becoming smarter, but I don't know why it took him 2 years into him being a GM to realize that that's just a tool in the toolbox that you should be using. I've said that line for 2 years, and it makes a lot of sense. You're just not using it. You're not benefiting yourself there. So this comes up a few times in the video, and it makes no sense to me. I mean, he should have used them 2 years ago. He should have been using them 10 years ago, whenever they came out. It makes more sense to do it this way. I'm happy that he's finally learned and stuff like that, but him talking about hiring these 4 computer folks and using more analytic and being more analytic driven in the future is something that comes up a few times in this video.
Nonsense. I think it's someone who had this idea and got into the analytics of it and did all these running backs and went through the whatever. Hey, Jonathan Stewart's in his 10th year, and he's hardly lost anything. What's that?
Why not wait until free agency?
Because now we know. Now we know what we have, and we're willing to do that, Jordan.
You're willing to give up 2 draft picks, whether 3, 4, 3, 5, in order to get that information?
Exactly. We felt we needed him.
So this one was confusing as well. I think this was asked by Jordan Ronan, at least it sounds like his voice. And he basically asked Gettleman, why not wait just a few months until Leonard Williams is a free agent? Did you feel it was necessary to give up 2 draft picks to acquire him to just watch him play 8 games? And the question makes a lot of sense. And then Gettleman's answer was, well, now we know what we have. And I was a little thrown off by that because the guy plays in the same stadium as you. He's been playing in the NFL for 4 years now. You can't watch him on tape and think this is what we have, but like he needs to be in a Giants jersey. Like it made no sense to me. I understand it's you get a closer look if he's on your team and you get to see him every single day rather than just playing on Sundays. But at the same time, I don't know if that reasoning is worth giving up 2 draft picks for. I mean, look, I hope he gets it right. And, the Leonard Williams trade, looking back on it, probably wasn't a good move. But his reasoning for it doesn't make too much sense to me. I mean, just to get a better look at the guy, I mean, that's the best you can come up with. Honestly, I was not a big fan of that response.
Say that again, Jordan. I'm sorry.
How much do you feel like you have to sign him now? Because let's say he tests the market and you try and sign him and he signs elsewhere. Then you traded 2 picks for the information you wanted to use it, and you still weren't able to use it.
And if we hold our water, we'll get a 3rd round comp.
So this was asked by Jordan as well, and it makes sense. I mean, he basically asked if Leonard Williams does not re-sign here, you basically gave up 2 draft picks for nothing for the guy that played 8 games in a lost season. So is that really worth it? And then Gettleman responds, well, we'll get a 3rd round comp pick for him. So I went back and did some research about comp picks and how you get them and stuff like that. And here's what it says. The value of the compensatory free agents gained or lost by each team is totaled, and a team is awarded picks of equal value to the net loss of the compensatory free agents up to a maximum of 4. So, from my understanding with the compensatory picks, if the Giants hypothetically had Leonard Williams sign elsewhere, but the Giants also went on to sign like Yannick Ngakoue, I can't even pronounce his name, Yannick Ngakoue, and they sign like a Corey Littleton or something like that, then I'm pretty sure that outweighs what the comp pick would be for Leonard Williams, and then all of a sudden you don't get a third-round pick for him. So if the Giants have this off-season spending spree like some of us expect because they have like $80-90 million in cap space this offseason, then they might not get the compensatory pick that Dave Gettleman is expecting. And I could be wrong on that. I mean, if I'm wrong, then fact check me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure if Leonard Williams were to walk and they were to sign some other free agents for big money, and the net loss isn't really equal, then I'm pretty sure the Giants would not get a third-round pick in the compensatory draft. So I don't really know exactly what the rules are there, but I'm pretty sure that makes sense. So basically, if he walks, but the Giants go on to sign other players for big money, the NFL won't award them a high pick like he expects.
Is how you can justify a recommitment to
I'm
analytics.
sorry?
How do you rationalize the recommitment to analytics when the night after you drafted Saquon Barkley, you mocked the concept?
Here's what I would say to you about that, and that's really, I mean, I did that kidding around. You turn around and you learn very quickly. I learned there's no throwaway lines here. You know, you guys will take anything and you know, do that, and I understand that. I truly do, but here's what I would say to you about that, okay? In terms of the analytics and devaluing the running back and this and that, Saquon's special. And that's what I should have said. Saquon's special. He's an outlier.
So this one touches up on analytics as well, and basically Gettleman responds to the question, I was joking around about that. Like, I understand Gettleman's a guy who just laughs a lot and thinks everything's funny and all, but like, the Giants, I was going to say we're some of the most loyal fans in sports, Giants fans, and we treat this team like it's a part of our family, basically. Like, I care about this team way more than I should. We don't want a GM to go up there and just be a jokester. Like, we want you to point us in the right direction. So to say you're joking around about it, kind of nonsense in my opinion. And honestly, I feel like that's a bunch of BS anyway. I mean, just man up and admit I wasn't a believer in analytics, but now I feel like it could help me for the future. That's what I want you to say. Like, I don't want you to, like, you know, this guy is the type of person, this is why, once again, I don't like Gettleman too much. He will never admit something's his fault or something like that, or I should have done this differently and stuff. Like, he just says it was a joke, or I was joking around. Like, come on, really? You're a GM of a football team that has not won anything in not a long time, 2011, but still, you've made the playoffs one time in like 8-9 seasons, whatever it's been. So yeah, we're not in a place where we should be joking around about this kind of stuff. Like, it just did not come off right to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I was honestly not laughing about it like he was.
How close is this team right now to being a playoff contender in your mind?
You know, it all depends upon how quickly the puppies come along. We got a lot of young kids. We led the league in snaps by rookies. A big part of it is how quickly they come.
So this reporter asked Gettleman, like, how close is his team to competing? And he just gives us this line, like, it depends how the puppies come along, how fast the puppies come along, whatever the hell that means. And I get what he's saying. It's like how fast the rookies develop and how fast the young players develop and stuff like that. But this, once again, was an answer I was not a fan of. Like, have a little confidence in your guys. Like go and tell us we're going to be better next year. I can guarantee that. I mean, look, you just have to improve from 4 wins. We're not asking for too much here. 4 and 5 wins. So even if you go 7 and 9, 8 and 8 next year, you got better. So don't give us like, oh, it depends how fast they come along. Like, you're just giving yourself more excuses. And by the way, he wasn't even telling the truth there. I just looked at a tweet today from Field Yates. Teams with the most snaps by rookies this season, number 1 was the Miami Dolphins. So, Dave, I mean, come on, get your facts straight at least. I mean, the Giants were second. I'll give them a little pass there, but at least, don't give us this false information here. But this just felt like an excuse, and I just wish he was a little more confident in his team and the players he drafted and stuff like that, and said, yeah, I mean, this team's going to be a lot better next year, I can tell you that, or something. Like, don't give us like, oh, it depends how fast the puppies come along, or some stupid saying like he always gives us. I was, once again, not a fan of this answer as well.
It's a collaborative process. Everything is a collaborative process. This is a monster up here. Anybody who's doing it on their own, it's difficult.
So this answer I actually liked. He was talking about how the decision making and the personnel decisions, it's all a collaborative process. And that bodes well for the next coach. I mean, some people have a concern that the potential next head coach of this team would be scared off by Dave Gettleman, and I think that's a little overblown for even how much I don't agree with some of what Gettleman does. Even I don't agree with that. I think this is a prestigious job being the coach of the New York Giants, and I don't think stability is an issue, obviously. Like you saw, the last two coaches got fired in a span of 2 years, basically, each. So that can be an issue, don't get me wrong there. But at the same time, I like how he says basically this is a collaborative effort, because for the next head coach, that's basically opening the door for you having a say in personnel decisions. Now, we know with certain coaches, it's going to be different than others. I mean, if the Giants hire a Matt Rule, that's a guy who has all the leverage in negotiations, and he can basically say, like, I want majority of the personnel decisions here. And if you get a different coach, like, a McCarthy or something like that, or even a guy lower than him, you can say, well, you can help with the decision-making process. And that also annoyed me because people gave Pat Shurmur no credit for the drafting of Daniel Jones, but he definitely had a say in it. I mean, this was a quarterback that I explained a couple of videos ago, I think was a perfect quarterback for Pat Shurmur's system, meaning Daniel Jones. So I think he deserves a little bit of credit for that. But of course, Gettleman had, I don't think he had the final say. I'm sure that's a John Mara thing when you're talking about a first-round pick. But at the same time, I mean, I think both guys, Shurmur and Gettleman, deserve credit for making that pick, and it is a collaborative process. He's right about that.
I would say this. I went to Carolina. Ron was there. I didn't fire anybody there. And 3 years later, we were in Palo Alto, in the Santa Clara at the Super Bowl.
So as we've seen a lot, Dave Gettleman once again boasts about his previous accomplishments, and this annoys me more than most things about him, how he takes a lot of credit for what he did in Carolina. And what I did was I went back and looked at some of the key players from the Panthers 2015 roster, which was the year they went to the Super Bowl, and who actually brought on and acquired those picks. So let's look. Luke Kuechly, arguably their best defensive player that year, a Marty Hurney pick. Greg Olsen, the great tight end, a Marty Hurney pick. Cam Newton, a Marty Hurney pick. Thomas Davis, a Marty Hurney pick. Josh Norman, a Marty Hurney pick. Jonathan Stewart, a Marty Hurney pick. It's hard to say this over and over again. Here's Gettleman twice. K'Wan Shore, a Dave Gettleman pick. That was a nice pick. And Charles Tillman was a Dave Gettleman signing. So that's like 8 guys right there, like some of the main players from that 2015 team. But look, a lot of it was the guy before him, the previous GM, Marty Hurney, who I think is currently the GM as well in Carolina. It's weird how that worked. But look, I mean, the top, 4 or 5 players for sure on that team were just all Hurney picks, and like Dave Gettleman's here trying to take credit for it. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm happy the guy's proud of himself and stuff like that. He made a Super Bowl appearance, but look, man, we get it. Like, you went there, you didn't win, unfortunately, but like, we know your resume. You don't have to keep talking about it. Like, how about you win something here and stop living in the past about what happened in Carolina? It annoys me to no end. I mean, look, if you were so great, then why were you fired 2 years later after a Super Bowl appearance? I mean, that is a bit puzzling right there. But anyway, that's none of my business. So hopefully we don't have to hear about this anymore. I think we're all aware this guy went to a Super Bowl when the main players weren't even his players, but it is what it is. So, I mean, I'm just tired of hearing it, and hopefully that's the last of it, but probably not, because he likes talking about his resume.
All right, and we probably need to address it, and it may change next year, but there are very few GMs that talk in season. Most GMs, and I did this in Carolina, I did not talk. Once the season starts, to me, it's about the players and coaches.
This one was interesting. So one reporter asked how come Dave Gettleman didn't have any in-season press conferences and allowed Pat Shurmur to stand up there every week and take the heat for what's going on here. And I agree with that. I think he took way too much heat for what was going on here anyway, but the fact that Dave Gettleman throughout the season, even during the trade deadline when he acquired Leonard Williams, which is somewhat of a big move. I mean, this guy is a former 6th overall pick from just, 4 years ago. So, I mean, this was something that was probably worthy of some sort of press conference or talking to the media, but he waits 6 months and goes into hiding and doesn't even talk to anybody. And some people on Twitter were like shocked that he was attacked by all these reporters. Like, yeah, no kidding, the guy just came off a 4-12 season where they started off 2-11, and he hasn't talked to the media in 5 or 6 months. Like, no kidding, these guys are going to be all over him and asking him all these questions and borderline attacking him. I tweeted it myself. Like, these media people are borderline attacking Dave Gettleman. But look, when you don't talk to the media for that long and you have this bad of a season, it's going to happen. So I also don't understand why he's talking about, like, other GMs because, as I said before with the New York Giants, I mean, this is one of the most loyal fan bases in football. I feel like we care a lot as compared to other fans and stuff like that. I know some fans are different than others, but at the same time, there's a lot of loyal fans here, people that pay a bunch of money to see these games and buy jerseys and memorabilia and stuff like that. And this GM can't even give us, like, you know, any type of press conference in the middle of the season. Like, I don't care what other teams do, man. Like, I don't care what the Jacksonville Jaguars do or the Seattle Seahawks. You are now the GM of the New York Giants. I don't care what they do. And, you know, you're in a position where your team was once again off to a terrible start. You could have at least addressed the media and try to take some heat off your head coach. And I think that would have been the right thing to do. Of course, there's no going back now, but he did say things might change next year. So if the Giants are off to a bad start next year, I do think that's probably the last of Dave Gettleman, but at the same time, hopefully he takes some of the heat off the new head coach next year, and that's another thing. Like, I don't know if a head coach wants to come in here with the potential of this being a train wreck once again and having the GM go into hiding for 5 or 6 months. So hopefully next year, if things get bad, which I hope they don't, I don't want to suck again next year, but if they do, hopefully he actually addresses the media during the season. That would be nice.
The power of this franchise will, and the stability of this ownership will allay the fears of any coach that thinks about that.
So this question was along the lines of, like, you know, would a potential head coach be scared off by this job because of you, meaning Dave Gettleman, or the stability of this franchise? And Dave Gettleman talks about the ownership having stability. And I didn't really get that because, as I mentioned before briefly, I mean, if you look at the last 2 coaches here, they didn't stay all that long. Like, if you're a head coach, like if you're a Matt Rule, for instance, do you really want to leave Baylor for a potential 2-year stay in the NFL just to get fired? I mean, this is not the Pittsburgh Steelers or anything like that. Like, this isn't the most stable franchise right now. If this next head coach comes in here and once again isn't good, he's probably thinking to himself, well, why won't they do me like they did the last 2 guys, meaning McAdoo and Shermer? I mean, McAdoo came in 2016, didn't even make it a full 2 years. Of course, the interim coach, Spagnuolo, doesn't count, but then you have Pat Shermer, who lasted 2 full seasons, which I guess is a little better, but that doesn't show any stability. Like, if the next head coach comes in here, they're not going to be like, oh, well, I can fool around for a couple of years and feel safe. That's not the case at all, man. You got to come in here and win. Like, you know, I mean, there's expectations here. I know they're not crazy high, and I definitely have realistic expectations compared to most people, but, like, you can't come in here next year and go 3-13 as the first-year head coach. That's not a good look. So there's some pressure on you for sure, but I wouldn't call this a stable franchise nowadays, considering we've had now 3 head coaches basically in 5 years.
You know, I know this may sound crazy, but I met recently with a big analytics guy. I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn from my mistakes.
Well, I mentioned before, I mean, this is a guy that wasn't really too into analytics a couple of years ago, and now he's saying he's learning from his mistakes. And that just scares me, honestly. I mean, this is a GM of a team that I love and root for, and, like, this guy wasn't even aware that he should have been using analytics the last 2 years. If a kid like me in my early 20s who doesn't know much about anything can figure out that analytics can be used to your advantage, and now Dave Gettleman, who's been in the NFL now for how long, 35 years, 40 years, just figures out now, like, hey, maybe I should start using analytics to my advantage, just figures it out now, I just feel like that's not a good look. And I mean, at the same time, I guess this is a good thing because he's learning from his mistakes, and hopefully this makes him a better GM in the future. But as I said, I mean, if I can figure this out 2 years ago, I don't know why it took him till now to realize that I should be using analytics to my advantage. And I don't expect Dave Gettleman to just all of a sudden understand the positional value type of stuff and believe it the way that I do. But, like, at the same time, I hope this somehow helps him for making future signings and draft picks.
Dave, how would you grade yourself
This
over
is
the
the last one, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat. How would you grade yourself over the last 2 years?
Over the last 2 years, not good enough. Really. Hasn't been good enough. It'll get better.
So his last question was, how would you grade yourself over the past 2 years. He doesn't give us an exact grade, but he basically says it hasn't been good enough. And I'm happy they had an answer. I'm happy that he's taking some accountability, which is usually not the case with Dave Gettleman. And, you know, I'm very happy they didn't use, like, the young puppies excuse once again. I probably would have, like, you know, bashed my head through the computer screen if I heard that again. But I'm happy he's taking some accountability, and he did say it will get better. I did say before that he should have been more confident with his team and said things will get better. But he closes his press conference by saying things will get better, so I'm happy he said that. And hopefully he's right about that. I mean, look, I know you guys probably think I don't want Gettleman to succeed. I hope he does, because, once again, I put the Giants over my dislike for Gettleman. I want the best for this team, and I hope he makes the right draft picks and the right free agent signings this offseason. This is a big offseason for the Giants. I've said that the last 3 years, but this is really a big one because of the salary cap space they have once again. So there was another thing I wanted to touch on. I didn't put it in here, but he did mention before that you build your team through the draft, and it was kind of a contradiction to me because he did trade 2 draft picks for Leonard Williams. So if you're saying you're going to build through the draft, but at the same time trade 2 draft picks to acquire somebody, I didn't really understand that. I mean, he did go on to say Leonard Williams is only 25 years old. He hasn't entered his prime yet and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of get it from that standpoint. But if you're trying to build through the draft, I don't know if trading a high third-round pick for a guy is the right move. But we'll see if he's right about that. So hopefully Leonard Williams, once again, signs here for a reasonable price. And it does scare me because Leonard Williams has all the leverage in these talks. I mean, look, his agent and him, they're not stupid. They understand they have the most leverage here. They understand if Gettleman lets Leonard Williams walk, he'll look like a jackass, honestly. So I think Leonard Williams and his agent get that for sure, and he'll probably get a lot of money from this team. I don't know how much he's worth. I wouldn't like paying Leonard Williams over $12 million a year. I feel like he makes some impact, especially in the run game, but he did have a lot of quarterback hits this year. I'll give him that, but he's not too big on getting sacks and stuff like that. But we'll see. I mean, I'm just speculating right now, but hopefully they don't pay him like a $15 million per year type contract. That'd sound ridiculous to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sure I'll get bashed for it in some regard because, I mean, there's a lot of Gettleman lovers out there. But, I mean, look, some of these quotes were a little alarming, and some of them I liked. So, I mean, that's basically what my reaction was, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. So I'll talk to you next time, and thank you for watching.